This week on Gymwright Live, we interview Kevin Young of a little company called Big Ass Fans to learn why their fans have become the standard for helping gym owners keep their gyms nice and cool. For all of you listening to this via the audio-only podcast, be sure to head over to facebook.com/Gymwright to check out the video version of this interview. Now, if you're a gym owner watching this and thinking to yourself, you know what, I sure would love to get access to a special community exclusively for gym owners where I could find tons of great conversations, interviews, and step-by-step how-tos of some of the most effective strategies out there, well, guess what? You're in luck. Simply type the word join in the comments below and you will get access to the network. This is our free private Facebook group exclusive to motivated gym owners just like you, where you will get access to all that wonderful stuff, including our 2019 Gym Sales and Marketing Planner, which will help you make the best year yet out of this year. Again, just type the word join now so you can get access to all of this great stuff and so you can start taking your gym owner game to the next level. All right, let's do this thing. Let's do it. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Gymwright Live. I am your host, Marcus Gursey, and this week we welcome to the show special guest Kevin Young. Kevin, pleasure to have you on today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Marcus. Looking forward to it. Been looking forward to the interview.
Awesome, man. Now, Kevin, you work with a company called Big Ass Fans, and for anyone who is in this space, we have all seen your guys' stuff. We've heard about it. You guys have been on the scene for a long time. But tell us a little bit about you and how you got in the fan business.
Sure. So we're headquartered in Lexington, Kentucky. Started with the company about 11 years ago. We were started as a company in 1999, so I've had the privilege to work with the company and seen it grow and seen us really design and purpose build our products for certain spaces. And fitness centers and CrossFit boxes are definitely one of those. And I'm actually a member of CrossFit Maximus here locally. Been doing CrossFit for about 6 years, so have a good feel for the industry as a consumer myself.
Right on, man. Now, you guys have kind of become the standard now, not just in our space, right? We all seen you at the games and, like I said, in lots and lots of gyms all over the world. But you guys have become a standard in, a whole variety of industries. I was going through you guys' website when prepping for this interview, and just it's incredible how much you guys have grown since I really saw you guys first come on the scene like 8 or 9 years ago.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's, I really think the credit goes back to just the investment of the company. We're committed to really designing our products for certain spaces rather than just having one big ass fan that fits all. And, that commitment to that research and development. And we have a lot of people, within the company that care a lot about this. And, it's exciting. It's exciting to be able to go into these spaces and really improve the quality of life for occupants. That's really what it comes down to. There are a lot of spaces that are tough, and when you look at unconditioned environments like a CrossFit box, that's a tough space to be in for an hour. And, it's exciting to be able to have a product, really as cool as a big ass fan, to be able to go in there and just see the massive impact that it can have.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because I can see how someone maybe who sees this show or initially sees the company and they're like, oh, I don't get it. Why would I, what's the big fuss about this fan versus that fan? And there's actually a huge difference between what you guys have done and what most of us have tried putting in our gyms and realized very quickly is not a great solution, which we'll get into here in a little bit, but. I remember when I first discovered you guys on the scene, these things are larger than life. You guys, how long have you guys been in the CrossFit industry now? And what would you say is the biggest appeal to gym owners?
Sure. I would say, I don't know the exact date, but I would say probably the first CrossFit box that purchased a fan, we're looking at 10, 12 years ago would be what I'd look at. And we've really taken off. We've been members. We've gone to the CrossFit Games several times as vendors. We've had a huge spike there. And a lot of us, like myself, travel, so being with this community is pretty cool, and the fact that we can go anywhere and show up to a box and work out. So I've had the privilege to work out in several of these that have big-ass fans and several that don't, and definitely can attest to having some pretty tough workouts.
Yeah, man. You guys One of my favorite things about the company is the branding overall. I feel like you guys have just totally knocked out of the park. Even, I mean, obviously, Big Ass Fans is something catchy. What's kind of the story of how all that evolved? Because I think you guys were called something different initially,
Sure.
and then you guys rebranded as Big Ass Fans.
Yeah.
What's the story with that?
Yeah, that's spot on. So we were the HVLS fan company, which is really the technology, high volume, low speed. And we changed the name in 2002 to Big Ass Fans. And really, we can attest that. Got to give credit to our customers, right? So the concept by the previous owner was taking this product to trade shows, and customers would walk up and say, "Man, that's a Big Ass Fan." And more and more customers said it, and eventually, you got to give him credit. He went out on the ledge in 2002 and really said, "You know what? You're right. It perfectly describes the product." And the product lives up to the name. So, we have a great time with it, but we're very proud of our brand. And, really, when you look at it, to call yourselves Big Ass Fans, we pride ourselves in that. But it also, for us, it sets an expectation that you have to be exceeding expectations. If you're going to go out and say, "Hey, we're Big Ass Fans," you have to live up to that. We're in the climate where people would love with the pitchforks to come out and say, "Yeah, their fans are okay," but I mean, they call themselves Big Ass Fans. I mean, right? So it's a challenge for us to continue to improve and to really live up to the brand itself, and it's something that we take pride in doing.
Yeah, I mean, I've been at the games. Geez, every year since they started many moons ago. And I remember when you guys were first there, and I was seeing them in person for the first time. At least, excuse me, I'd seen them mounted on ceilings before, but I had not seen like the full spread. You guys had like a dozen fans with spraying water and everything. And I remember like standing there. I was with my wife, and she's looking at it, and she's like, "Oh, that's a really good name." And
Nice.
right then, people were walking up, and they're like, "Big Ass Fans." They're like, "That is a Big Ass Fan." And it's just, for me, as someone who's studied marketing and branding, you just really appreciate it when someone really gets it right.
Sure.
And obviously the name has humor in it, and the logo with the donkey and all that. That's all great, but like just reading through your site the other day, for example, you guys have your big ass lights, but then under the lights you had this thing like can't see your balls. And I just was laughing my ass off, man. You guys just nail it all the way through. So really good job on that front.
Sure. Appreciate that.
All right, well, let's talk about what these things even are and what you guys do. So I know there are 3 different areas we're going to talk about today. So we had comfort, we had aesthetics, and we had cost reduction.
Sure.
Where do you want to start?
Let's start with comfort, right? So I would argue that most boxes and most of the listeners have some sort of a fan, right? Most they're going to have something, whether it's something from a Walmart, a Home Depot, or they're going to have a Big Ass Fan, right? There's some sort of attempt to provide comfort for their members. We know a lot of these boxes are in industrial type spaces, non-conditions, roll the garage door up. One of the things when you look at these fans and you look at generating the elevated air speeds is providing that comfort effect. But it goes even further than that. We've actually, there's a study that's out by Cal Berkeley, and they've actually, and we'll put this link in the post so you guys can check this out. They have a thermal comfort tool. And one of the things that's really neat about this is you and I could be working out in the exact same box in the exact same conditions, and you may be comfortable and I may not be. That's just the human nature of comfort, right? It could be the exact same humidity, temperature, air movement. One may be comfortable, one may not. The goal of this study is to provide a acceptable range of comfort for the most occupants possible, right? That's the intent of that. When you look at the study, there's several things they look at. One's going to be the temperature of the space. That's going to affect our comfort. One's going to be the humidity of the space. That's going to affect it. One's going to be, what is the metabolic rate? What are you doing? Are you just standing there as potentially the coach walking around? Are you actually in the middle of doing Helen, right? Are you in the middle of a grinder? Are you doing any of the 0.5s from the open, right? 30 minutes in and dying, right? Well, your metabolic rate's going to be significantly higher. And then what are you wearing, right? Your clothing actually has a big impact on your comfort level, right? Are you wearing a t-shirt? Are you wearing sweatpants, right? So you actually can put all of those in, and they've developed what they would call to be that comfort range. One of the last things that affect that is airspeed, right? And that's where we come in. So you can actually, and I think it'll be a pretty cool thing for owners to do, is to go in and fill that out. What is our average humidity in this space? What do we think the temperature is typically? What are we typically wearing? What is our metabolic rate? And see where you fall on that comfort scale, right? And then go up to that airspeed and start increasing that. And you'll see how elevated airspeed in these spaces will actually move you from being in an uncomfortable environment into a comfortable environment, right? And that's what big ass fans can do. They actually also did a study on fitness. They actually utilized fans, and so they actually made a recommendation that fitness centers should operate with elevated air speeds, not only just for comfort but also for performance, right? So increasing that airspeed, actually you would see a performance in your athletes, right? So they actually tested, it was pretty neat, they tested a fan blowing directly on someone's face, and then they also tested overhead fans, ceiling fans. And the ceiling fans provide whole body comfort, which provide more performance gains, right? So it is comfort, it is performance, but that improvement is what allows you to provide a comfortable environment for your members.
Yeah, and there's something to be said, or there's a lot to be said about the different kind, like what your fans do versus what the regular fans do. So I'll tell you about my personal experience. So we had 3,600 square feet, Southern California, and warehouse industrial, 2 big roll-up doors, 2 doors that open up in the front. All things considered, it was pretty optimal for airflow through, at least relative to a lot of other boxes I've been to that did not have both sides that you could open up. Anyway, so what we did is we had this huge industrial fan. It was like 4 feet across that was centered between the doors. And then we went to Home Depot and we bought those big standing fans, which in theory, we're like, okay, cool. We spent like $500 on fans. It looked like, based on everything that the packaging said and the way everything looked, like, man, we're going to move a lot of air. And when we first turned them on, it sure sounded like we were moving a lot of air because it was loud as hell. But what we noticed is that it was like when we would actually be training in summertime, our box would get up to well over 100 degrees inside. So the fans were like, that was prime real estate. We're like to be directly in front of those fans. But the problem is that it was only good for like 1 or 2 people. And then second is that those people now could not hear any instruction at all. So they're going, what? And asking for repeats. And not to mention the coaches who would be on shift and who would do, more than one class in a row would lose their voices because you'd have to be yelling over these loud fans constantly. So even though it looked like, and we thought when we made the investment, like, oh, this is going to work great. And it sure sounded like it was doing a lot of good. It barely did anything at all. It really only helped a handful of the people in the room. And it really was just causing everyone to have to yell. Everything was super loud. The music had to be louder, so it annoyed our neighbors that much more. So it was actually a lot of negative side effects from us trying to go that cheaper route. And we actually had it then on the menu then, right? But we ended up selling the gym. And so we didn't actually follow through on it yet, but we were going to get big ass fans installed in the facility. And even though they cost more, you realize you're not really saving anything because you're not actually solving the problem. You're creating a lot of additional problems by not just doing it correctly the first time. It's kind of like how gym owners oftentimes approach flooring, right? When they first build their facility, they're like, I don't want to spend the money on rollout flooring. That's a waste. I'll just get cheap mats or whatever. And then a couple years in, they realize like these things are funky. It is dirty. It's gross in here. And then they end up having to upgrade again after the fact. So pretty similar story for me.
Sure.
So I guess we'll kind of jump into that right now. So what would you say about people who are in a situation like I was in, who need to cool down their space, but are a little apprehensive about spending $5,000 on a fan in their facility? What's the difference? What should they be considering? All that.
Absolutely. I completely get it. It's the investment in big ass fans is not one that's going to be the lowest first cost option. The lowest first cost option is getting in your car and driving over to Walmart and feeling like you checked the box. And although it's going to help some, and a lot of gyms have done it, there's a huge difference between doing that and installing a big ass fan. When we look at the investments of these boxes, whether it's $25,000 or they're spending upwards of 6 figures, we've seen where fans can be an afterthought. There's a few other things we were talking about it earlier. Mm-hmm. Sound systems could be something. Oh, we need to get a sound system. We need to get a fan. And it seems like an afterthought. We really are pushing that you need to be considering the comfort of your box from the get-go. It needs to be looked at as important as what you mentioned before, your flooring. It needs to be looked at as a critical element in the space, because that experience that you have from your members, it could be critical. It could be a critical reason why somebody wants to stay for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, or they just stay for a few months. When you look at the technology, and I don't want this to come off salesy, it might, but when you look at the technology, when you invest in a big ass fan, we do not get phone calls. They say, yeah, it just wasn't worth it. Right? We just don't get that phone call. So it is not, $5,000 ceiling fan. I get it. I 100% get it. I mean, it's not just a small amount of money, but they live up to the name. They live up to the investment. And when you look at the technology, you're talking about installing a fan. When we talk about high volume lift, you're talking about installing a fan that has an airfoil design, right? I mean, this is an extruded aluminum airfoil, right? This is not just a bent piece of metal. It's not just a bent piece of paperboard, right? It's literally like an airplane wing is what we're talking about here. I mean, this is engineered to move air. It's engineered to move air, high volume, low speed, at a low speed, right? So when we talk about the noise levels, you're not, as a coach, going to be sitting there screaming. You'll look up at these things and go, it doesn't even seem like it's moving very fast. How is it moving that much air? Well, it's engineered to do that, right? So we can have a very low noise fan that can move a significant amount of air. And when you start looking at the technology, one of the great benefits of these boxes, most of them are unobstructed spaces, right? So if you think about the fan installed in the center of the box, it's bringing vertical to horizontal air movement. These are designed, because of the airfoil design, air movement down, it goes out across the floor, it goes back up the wall, it goes back to the fan and continues that. So no matter where you're at as a member, you're going to be getting that elevated airspeed. It's not going to be, oh, well, I'm doing burpees, so I'm going to go run over by the fan so I can sit right in front of it. Right? Everybody's going to be benefiting. Yeah,
that's really how it was at our gym. We're like, if I'm going to try to PR today, I got to be by the fan.
That's right. So you're covering that entire space, and they're also variable speed, right? I'll give you an example. I mean, when I show up, I do 5:30 in the morning. When I show up at 5:30 in the morning in the wintertime, we're all wearing, hoodies and jackets, and we're freezing our butts off, and the fan's going very, very slow. It's helping out with energy costs. We'll talk about that in a minute. But by the time we're in mid-wad, we're all in T-shirt and shorts, and we're turning the fan up, and coach is freezing his ass off. But it's, even though it's only 55 degrees, right? We want that elevated airspeed. We want that. And so you've got that variable speed control to where it's infinite, 0 to 100%. You can pick what you need in the space. It makes a huge, huge difference.
I remember the first time that I was actually in a facility that had a big ass fan running, where like it just hit me like a bag of bricks, because I'm in there and I'm like, it feels really good in here. I'm like, but something's different. And I'm looking around and I'm like, there's no obnoxious fans. Everyone isn't like, what? And yelling over each other. It was just quietly moving very slowly up top. It was moving an insane amount of air. And we were in Texas at the time, and was kind of like almost like a barn that was overhauled into a gym. And sure. I mean, you had everything working against you. It was Texas, super hot. And this no insulation, no air conditioning, no nothing. Yet this fan was keeping everyone sane for the workout. So anyway, all right. So comfort, check. What's next?
Aesthetics.
All right.
So it's not something to hide from. There's a wow factor associated with these, plain and simple. When you walk in, we talk about the brand, but you investing in the technology beyond what it does, right, which it performs significantly well. Beyond what it does, investing in a 16-foot fan into your box, every single member will walk in and they will be thankful for it, period. I mean, it's just, there's something about that. Every new member that walks in is going to see that fan and they're going to go, wow, they've got a big ass fan, right? And the product, the company, as we've continued to grow, it is a symbol to your members that you care. Right? People know they're not cheap. Right? So if you're willing to invest in a big ass fan, that is a symbol to your members that you care about them. Right? I mean, that's really what it is. It's just that wow factor. It's what can set us apart. I mean, this is, and you know this better than I, but the fitness landscape has got to be as competitive as it's ever been. Yep. Right? So what are you doing that the other gyms, boxes are not doing in your space? And you've got to be able to check those. And from an aesthetic standpoint, huge benefit. Another thing I want to touch on as well from a aesthetic standpoint is we talked about the air movement being vertical to horizontal. I've had a lot of feedback from box owners that they can actually clean the floor in between classes, and because of the air movement, it dries the mats before they even start their next class, right? So it's allowed them, if they need to, you know, let's just say it's one of those days where you are doing a ton of burpees, or just that day where everybody's sweating. Gross. You can clean that. You can clean that before the next class, and now it looks like it's brand new when everybody comes in for the next class that comes up. Where before, when you don't have that air movement, you may only be cleaning maybe once at the end of the night, right? And then hoping it's dry by the time your morning classes show up.
Yep. Love that. Okay. Last one, cost reduction.
Sure. So a lot of the boxes are not air conditioned, right? So let's talk about boxes that are heated, right? Ours is, I think we set our thermostat at 55 degrees. Nobody's trying to heat these things to 70 or 80 degrees. Even with that, right, you are losing money because the heat rises to the ceiling. And essentially, think of a bathtub being filled up in reverse, right? You have your thermostat, and you're going to set it on 55. You're going to start pouring heat into that building. A lot of them are industrial spaces, poorly insulated. That heat's going to go to the ceiling, and you're just going to keep filling it up from the top. And you're just going to keep dumping heat into it until it gets to the 55 set point. Then your units turn off. Well, you just heated the ceiling to 75. I mean, just completely wasted heat.
You reach up, and I mean, even just standing, you can feel it's hotter above you, let alone what's, 15-foot ceiling.
Take a rope climb up to the ceiling and see what it feels like up there, right? Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hot. It's just it's wasteful, right? These fans can run at a very, very slow speed, and we just mix it. You never turn the fan off in the wintertime. When we walk in at 5:30 in the morning, the fan it's literally just spinning. Not much faster than the fan you can see over me, just spinning. But that homogenizes that. You're saving anywhere from 20 to 40% on your heating cost, right? Now, from an energy standpoint, for a non-conditioned space, they're extremely efficient, right? What they provide, you're looking at a 0.5 horse to a 2 horsepower motor. They're extremely efficient. You're not going to invest in a big ass fan and go, oh, my energy bill just went up $300 this month. They're literally pennies on the hour. Might be at full tilt. You're talking about a couple dollars a day to operate them, right? So this is not going to be something that you invest in and go, oh man, my operational cost is really, really high to run these, so I don't want to run them. Right. So they're very, very efficient.
Right. And something to consider too, if you are a place that has air conditioning, right, it's then about being as efficient with it as you can, right? You want it to be at that optimal temperature, which if you have good circulation within the room, like you said, the same thing like with the heat, you're able to actually run the AC less and and maintain the same temperature because you have the better circulation, right?
Yeah.
So you'll actually end up spending more or spending less by circulating that because you're not having to run the AC as much.
And let's talk about that, because there are some boxes that do have air conditioning, and that's exactly right.
Luxury living.
Absolutely, that's right, man. Good for you guys.
I didn't have
we stick with big ass fans of Maximus, but when you look at that, it's raising the set point, right? You raise the set point, that's going to save you money on that operational cost. Use the fans, because regardless of how cold it is, I'll give you an example. When it's 55 degrees in the wintertime here inside the box and we're working out, we're still sweating. You're not going to be able to air condition the box to the point where people aren't going to – you're going to sweat no matter what it is, right? So you thinking you're going to set it at 70 versus 75 or 80 versus 85, that's going to make a huge difference. Once you're mid-workout, it really doesn't matter. Everybody's going to be sweating anyway. It's the elevated airspeed at that point that actually helps evaporate that sweat off of your skin and helps cool you at a rapid rate, right? So if you have air conditioning, huge savings in raising that set point and using the fan. I can attest that the fan will make a bigger difference mid-workout than you being like, oh, well, let's lower the thermostat a couple degrees. It's not going to make a difference from a comfort standpoint.
Right. So how does the gym owner go about actually investing in one of these fans? And how would they even know which one in your guys' lineup is the right one for their gym? Because I was going through your guys' site. You guys have a lot of really cool options nowadays.
Absolutely.
Are there – I'll let you take it. You go from there.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. There are a lot of different options that we have. That's our job, right? Our job is to be able to work with you. And then there's going to be different things we're going to look at. It's going to be climate, right? If you're in Texas versus Minnesota, right? Those are going to be things we may look at. Budget is a big one, right? What are you looking to do? What is the ultimate goal? We've got fans that are lower first cost. We've got fans that have higher first cost, right? We've got fans that are going to last, 20 or 30 years. Do you own the facility you in? Do you lease the facility? Those are all things that we want to know to help us decide if we were sitting and owning this box, what would I invest in? Mm-hmm. And that could be some different fans. So the technology is designed for those spaces. So we'll be able to ask some questions. In some cases, we may come out and take a look at the box and be able to offer our recommendation. But that's our job. We can tell you exactly, what you need. And we can work with you guys, from a cost standpoint. We've got some financing options and things like that, because we do know it's not an easy pill to swallow, but the investment is worth it. We fully believe that. But that's on us, man. We'll work with you, and we'll tell you what you need and help you get that benefit.
Yeah, and if you're looking at it from, back to kind of like the whole cost reduction thing, oftentimes you can largely offset your payment for a fan like this, a tool like this, because it's going to inherently lower your bill for heating right. and or air conditioning or running lots of crappy, inefficient fans, right?
Sure.
And so on. So that is something to consider when you're doing something like this.
Absolutely.
Question about like installs. Obviously, you guys you're in Kentucky. I imagine that you don't have an office in every city in the country. And considering you guys are in I think that's on your website, like 175 countries at this point.
We are.
How does this work with install? Is this something where you guys just ship it to the gym and you say good luck? Or is there do you guys have recommended installers or,
yes.
How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. We do. We have an extensive install network throughout the country. Mm-hmm. So we actually do have offices in around 5 or 6 cities. Mm-hmm. So we do have installers in certain cities, Dallas, Houston, Orlando come to mind, Kentucky, obviously. But we do also have certified contractors that we work with that have installed hundreds of these fans. So we can handle that. And we do have some options on the do-it-yourself side. So, if you've got somebody handy, from a box gym standpoint, we can do everything. You might have an electrician that goes to the 6 p.m. class, right? So, keep that in mind. Obviously, we will take care of everything. We can help you guys out. But that could also be an option to lower some of that initial cost, which I know is a concern.
Yep. Awesome, man. Anything else you'd like to add around what you guys are doing? I know you guys have some cool stuff happening this year. You guys have some great resources on your website.
Sure.
Where can people learn more about this stuff?
Sure. Yeah, we do. And we're coming out with 4 to 5 new products a year, which is really, really exciting. So we're seeing a huge investment from that standpoint. And really, check out bigassfans.com. We've got an entire section there for fitness. So you can check that out. We've got a lot of different case studies that you can check out. As I mentioned before, we'll put a link here for the thermal comfort tool for you guys to take a look at as well. But absolutely, yeah, check us out.
Awesome, man. Final question for you. In one sentence,
Sure.
If you could give one piece of advice to a gym owner, what would it be?
Sure. I think so. As a member myself in this community, is ask your members what they want. Right. That simple. Ask your members what they want, and I would highly recommend doing that in a survey standpoint. It's not easy for a member to go up to a box owner and say, "Hey, I want a 5:30 class," or "Hey, it's hot in here," or "Hey, it's dark in here," or "Hey, I need more help on nutrition," whatever that could be. So I highly, highly recommend from a survey standpoint. We talked about earlier with the thermal comfort tool, there's actually an occupant comfort study. And I would truly ask box members, just ask. Mm-hmm. If everybody in the gym says, "No, we're good, man," cool. Don't make the investment, right? But if everybody says, "Yeah," 75% come back and say, "Yeah, it's miserable." We just kind of deal with it because no big deal, right? Well, that's worth looking at. Is that an improvement point, right? And I do think that in the competitive nature we're in, it's important to look at that. And I'll also say this, which is harsh but true. As a society, we've gotten softer, right? And we've seen this everything from amusement parks to manufacturing plants, even into the fitness box. Mm-hmm. We live in a very comfortable society in this country. We have air conditioned our house, air conditioned in our cars, right? And then we go to a box that doesn't have air conditioning. And they may not tell you this, but we really have created kind of some softness out there. And we have problems that didn't exist 20 years ago. I won't mention the amusement park, but 20 years ago, it wasn't an issue waiting in queue lines. Now it's the number one complaint. Okay. Right. There's a reason for that. So is the number one complaint in your box comfort? It may be. Ask. If it is, then it's something that you should really, really consider addressing. If it's another problem, address it. It's just going to make your box better. It's going to make your members happier. And ultimately, that's the goal, is just that entire experience for you as the owner, for us as the member, is making that as great as it possibly can be. And you may learn some things that you don't know about that people may not be willing to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point you made about competition is a really important one, because it's no longer this CrossFit box versus that CrossFit box is the competition. It's all these other like businesses, the fancier boot camps, and whether it's F45 or it's Orange Theory or it's who knows what you have in your market, but they're taking all the things that we do, from more coach-led classes and functional training and all that, and then they're adding in this whole primo experience layer of an aesthetically pleasing facility that's super clean with air conditioning and all these sorts of things that, if you're looking at the consumers that we're dealing with now in this space, we're no longer dealing with those early adopters who didn't care and were like, yeah, I don't care if it's grimy and hot and whatever. Right. We're dealing now with the majority, and the majority, like you said, is kind of soft, and they want it to look nice and feel nice, and there isn't anything wrong with that, right? We need to just honor the market for what it is and say, okay, if I want to cater to a more upscale demographic, because what we charge is more expensive than it's not a $30 gym membership. We're talking $100 to $200, $300 a month for a gym membership, and we're saying how we're so much better in all these other ways. Well, how about let the comfort level and the experience when someone just is standing inside your facility also match that? Because even if your training's amazing, your executives or your working professional may be like, yeah, but it's too gross, it's too hot, or it's too whatever. So just take that into consideration, guys, as you're kind of evaluating all this stuff. Because again, this is something that I think all of us should be considering far more than we often do. It is much more of an afterthought to most. But put out a survey, ask your members how they're feeling, and then take some action on it.
Absolutely. I've got one more plug.
Do it.
We've got a member at Maximus that just started chemo this week, Chelsea Rust, and we are doing every week we're doing a challenge essentially at our CrossFit box. So you can follow the CrossFit Maximus to see this. So this week's it's 100 burpees, right? So I'm gonna challenge everybody to listen to this. Knock out 100 burpees after your WOD for Chelsea Rust, Team Rust, also hashtag Chelsea's tits. And but hey, we're thinking about her. We're praying for her. We'd love for you guys' support as well. So follow us on that. And she's doing 16 weeks of chemo, so we're gonna do a new challenge each week. Just thinking about her and yeah, so that's awesome. Keep her in your thoughts and prayers. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I'm glad you said something.
Cool.
All right. Well, Kevin, thank you so very much for joining us today. I appreciate you taking the time and coming on with us today. And I want to thank all of you motivated gym owners out there for joining us today as well. If you are interested in getting free access to our private Facebook group, again, just type the word join in the comments below and that'll get you access right away. And also, if you want to watch this show live, you can join the conversation every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time right here on the Gymwright Facebook page. Thank you again, everyone, for your support. Now get out there and build something that matters. We'll see you all again next week. Bye-bye.